Hello.
Hi. All right. Well, welcome. Thanks for joining us. I have my best friend Shiva here has come to be with us. And for those of you who are newer to the program, we just have always wanted to create a program that is truly authentic. So when I originally wrote the content, Shiva basically went through the program from start to finish. Just to make sure that it was authentic and that it was responsible and respectful, and that we were providing everybody with the traditional information. One of the things that prompted me to do this and to write this program, even before we started facilitating it online, was that there are a lot of teacher trainings out there in the world that are not lineage based. And so we wanted to create a lineage based training that was affordable and accessible. You know, unfortunately a $3,000 training is not affordable or accessible to a lot of people. And most of them aren't based in lineage. Most of them are based in somebody's perception and verbalization. So we wanted to give you guys something that was real and that you could take and internalize and let, integrate into your life so that you could embody the teachings of yoga. So with that being said, today we're going to be talking about how we can be good stewards of yoga in the current climate in which we live. And we're going to talk a little bit about holding space for all different beings, all different cultures, ethnicities, etc., and how we can do that in a responsible way. And really, we're going to go back to the sutras. So before I start this process with Shiva, where I'm going to interview her and let her talk to you guys about her feelings on this stuff, I just want to do a little overview on the philosophy of yoga and like why we're here, right? So, a 200-hour yoga teacher training, it really starts with the foundation of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. And in the very first sutra, the very first chapter, Patanjali starts to talk to us about the mental fluctuations of the mind. And this is the chitta vritti. These are the thoughts, the feelings, the memories, the sensations that come up in our day-to-day life. And this chitta vritti creates kleshas, and it's just based on its function and what it's supposed to do. And if we remember back to Samadhipada, Patanjali says that, excuse me, not Samadhipada, it's, yeah, it is Samadhipada. Yeah, okay, sorry. If we think back to Samadhipada, Patanjali says, there are 5 types of mental fluctuations. There is truth, there is perception, there's verbalization, there's memory, and sleep. And the only thing that's real is truth. The perception is based on my karmic experience, okay? So my karmic experience is going to give me my perception. And then my mind is going to create a story around that perception, and that's the verbalization. So those two things they might be true for me in my experience, but they are not universally true. Okay, but what happens in our society, and especially in American society, is we act off of our perception and verbalization more than we listen to truth. And so we are constantly in a state of reaction, right? Where we're going between rajas and tamas. And remember, rajas is that turning, that cycling, that kinetic energy, and tamas is potential energy. There's nothing there, but it can move, right? It needs rajas in order to move into sattva. And okay, I got you. Sorry, guys, 1 second. There we go. Haha, that's better. So we have to remember as yoga teachers what we're doing, okay? That we are teaching yoga. So there's a time when I have my yoga teacher hat on, and there's a time when I have my mom hat on, and there's a time when I have my activist hat on, and I can actually have an activist hat on and have all those other hats too, but I also need to be respectful and authentic to the other hat I have on. Does that make sense? So like if we're talking to our children about things that are going on in our world, we're going to talk about it in one way because we're trying to raise projection-free, enlightened beings, right? So we're going to talk about it compassionately, respectfully, respectfully, respectfully and responsibly with our energy. But if we're talking about it with our best friend, we can be more of ourselves, right? Because that's the best friend energy, and that's okay. Likewise, if we're talking about it with our students, we need to remember that we're a yoga teacher and that we need to be talking about it through the lens of yoga, right? So, Patanjali also goes on to say that they're the kleshas, and the kleshas have 5 types. Now, our lineage is through Krishnamacharya and Desikachar, and Desikachar talks about the kleshas like an umbrella. He says that there is one klesha, and it's of 4 types. And he said the one klesha is avidya, it's ignorance. And that underneath avidya, you have ego, you have attachment, you have aversion, and the fear of death. And all 4 of those are just forms or versions of ignorance. And ignorance isn't bad. It isn't charged. There's no polarity to it. It just means that we don't know, right? So I think that's what a lot is coming up right now about, what's going on in the world with all of the things, whether it's the state of our healthcare or the way we're treating each other. There's a lot of ignorance around this stuff. And instead of judging ourselves as bad or wrong, or judging somebody else as bad or wrong, we can go back to the ancient text and live our yoga in an authentic way that is uplifting collective consciousness. So that's the purpose of our conversation today. So I'm going to ask Shiva some questions. We're going to talk about some specific examples. And then towards the end of class, we're going to leave about 15-20 minutes open for questions. And we just really ask that everybody be respectful and understand that, we appreciate and hear your truth. We want to hear your truth. But from our perspective, we're also trying to teach you to be projection-free teachers, where you can hold space for all beings in their experience, okay? How does that feel? Is that good?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
All right, so Shiva and I were talking before we got on the call, and we were talking a little bit about where we wanted to start. And the Gita has been referenced a lot lately. So the Bhagavad Gita is an epic, right? It's an excerpt from the
Mahabharata.
Yeah.
So, namaste everybody. So the Mahabharata is one of the great epics in the Indian tradition. And the Bhagavad Gita is specifically, it falls sort of right in the middle of the entire Mahabharata. And even Krishna mentions that is the crux, or the main piece from the entire epic. And that is basically a collection of 700 verses, which is basically a conversation, a samvadani between Krishna and Arjuna. His disciple / friend.
Yes.
And that's what the Bhagavad Gita is. It's basically question answer, because Arjuna asks a series of questions and Krishna answers and dispels that avidya from Arjuna.
Yeah. So today, Shiva is going to be our Krishna, and I'm going to be our Arjuna. And we're going to start talking a little bit more about this. So some of the articles have been referenced on social media, etc., have taken and talked about some of the concepts that are presented in the Bhagavad Gita, and sort of said, if you're practicing yoga, you're doing it this way because it says this in the Bhagavad Gita, and that's okay. But if we're really looking at cultural appropriation, we have to understand that when we take one line from an epic, experience, right? Like the Bhagavad Gita is an experience, right? And it's actually an internal dialogue between, that part of us that is that higher self and that, ego self. But when we take one line of that and we take it and use it to stand on our soapbox, that is cultural appropriation right there. So that is, in definition, cultural appropriation. So we want to talk about this one line that we've seen several times on the internet, and how people are using it to justify their soapbox, and where they're missing the cultural nuances of this and the historic nuances. So I'll let you speak to that.
So that what basically we've seen a lot going around is that, fighting or opposing injustices or fighting against injustice is perfectly fine, because Krishna told Arjuna to stand up and fight. And there was there also there was injustice, and Krishna was telling Arjuna, get up, go fight. But actually, the bigger, you got to see the bigger picture, the bigger story here is that Krishna was telling Arjuna to go do his duty. Mm-hmm. He wasn't specifically telling him to go fight. It just happened to be fighting because Arjuna was a warrior. Mm-hmm. And that was his duty. Yes. It was his swadharma. His dharma was to be a warrior and to, fight against injustice and protect justice. So that was his. So what Krishna was telling him to do was not so much go fight, but to do his duty. Yeah. And that not to run away from your duty, and to know yourself. And there was other things. I mean, this line that they picked out was just one line from the 700 verses. There are other 699 verses there that talk about all the different types of like yogas that he's talking about. There's the bhakti, and then you have your karma. Karma is what he starts off with. Go do this because that's your duty. Mm-hmm. And then he moves on to everything else, the bhakti, the jnana, the everything else.
And he tells Arjuna, I will not fight, because yes, my dharma is not to fight. So Krishna is not out here fighting. Krishna is saying, I will be behind you. I will support you in silent solidarity, but it is your job to fight. Yes. So again, it's not even really applicable to what we're seeing right now, right? Because this is a very specific instance where Arjuna is born into a caste system where he is a warrior, okay? And so in this day and age, we don't have, that's not what we're dealing with, right?
In America.
Yeah, in America, right? But
But then again, you see, even in India, where I say this varna ashrama is the caste system. Mm-hmm. That was put in place long ago, where people were sort of given jobs, not positions, but jobs, so that the society would run and function smoothly. Yeah. Everybody would be interdependent on each other. You do this job, we'll all, be together, but we are all equal. But I mean, that has just this sort of disintegrated over time when people came in and got into ego, and it got to their head in power position, whatever. So the thing about what Arjuna's job was basically to be a warrior. He was sort of born into the warrior caste. So now, when we talk about now, a lot of us don't even know what our caste is. Yeah. Right? So from there it's a journey where you like, either you choose it, or
it chooses you.
Or it chooses you.
We talked a little bit about like your karma precipitates your dharma, yes, right? And so here, this is Arjuna's dharma. In fact, if you read the Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna is an archer, and his dharma is to be a warrior. Like he is built like a warrior. They even talk about it. So I think that when we use these verses in this isolated way, yes, then it becomes very one-sided, and it goes back to that perception verbalization rather than the wholeness of the truth. Like, what is the wholeness of the truth? Another example is when we're talking about ahimsa, right? There's been a lot of that on social media, we've got to have nonviolence, but how did that land?
So what I'm seeing a lot of, what I saw was that ahimsa was sort of extrapolated, and it went from ahimsa purely means nonviolence. And actually, that's all what it means. Ahimsa is nonviolence. When the extrapolation came that, oh no, it's okay to take up arms because Krishna said that it was okay to fight, and that is ahimsa, that I'm fighting against injustice. So ahimsa is being nonviolent and standing up for nonviolence. Something like that. Everything kind of is very convoluted. It becomes very convoluted there. So then there are very loud voices out there that keep shouting that no, we all have to stand up and fight. As yogis, we have to stand up and fight. And that is us practicing ahimsa. Then that becomes a little question marky.
Yeah.
Because really that's not ahimsa. It's okay to stand up and, oppose what's going on. There's injustice. I'm going and, actively opposing it in whichever way we are doing it. Some are silently opposing it.
Yeah.
Some are not necessarily using your actual voice.
Mm-hmm.
Some using actions. Some
money.
Yeah. Some using just sitting and praying. So there's so many ways of going about this. But there are some voices that say, no, every single person has to mobilize and go out there.
And if you don't, you're against it.
And if you don't, you're against. So that kind of it goes into this area which is kind of it's full of a lot of projection and perceptions there. So that again brings you away from what Patanjali is talking about, because you've pulled just one line from here, one line from somewhere else, and then one line from what the media says, and then one line and something from your own experiences. You've mishmashed them all together and then presenting it as, because I'm a yoga teacher, it's okay for me to say all this and influence a lot of other people with my very loud voice. So then that is not staying true to what the texts and what yoga truly is, because yoga is not political.
This is another thing. This is another thing that I've recently heard, and in fact, I've even seen my teacher post about it. About you can't have yoga if there's not politics in your yoga. So, how do you feel about that, Shiva?
I think that's a load of crap. I don't think that's true, because yoga is not. What is politics? Politics is a set of policies that are laid down to govern and to guide a society in a proper way. Now, how those politics are in this current situation in this country by this government, all that is aside. But what actual politics is not. Yoga. That's just it's just policies, right?
Yeah.
Yoga is not that. Yoga is union. That's it. Union. You coming back to yourself. That is yoga.
Yes.
So, yoga is fighting against injustice. You're really bringing. That's appropriation. Because you've brought it down to what you want it to be, when it's so much more than that, right? Yoga is basically union. Yogam. Yujyam, yuj is the root word from where the word yoga that we know it as, we call it in English. Yogam, yujyam. Yuj is the root word, right? And that basically means union. So union of what? The Jivatma and the Paramatma. That's all. So, I say that's all, but that is so all-encompassing, right? So if you want to apply the principles that you have learned and are practicing currently to your life, to whatever is surrounding your life, which includes politics, your social media, whatever your relationships with other people, all that's well and fine, because you are in practice, you are staying authentic to yourself, because what you have learned, of course, the same yoga training only everybody is going through. Same yoga, which is like, yoga is my way of life. It's our way of life. But her experience in yoga is completely different from mine, because we all have our own paths.
Yes.
And that's the case with everybody. Yes. So as yoga teachers, what we are trying to do here, when you go to your studio, or you have your own private practice, or you have your online classes that you teach, whatever satsang, whatever you are doing, you are basically trying to empty yourself and be a container, so that the divine energy can flow through you, so that yoga can happen through you. And that's all. That is true yoga. When when we call ourselves a yogi, that's what this means. Yeah. That does not mean that I have to go and only ahimsa. Why is only ahimsa taken in, from there? I was not very sure. If you're talking of as a yoga teacher, you should compassion is also there.
Yeah.
In Ishvara Pranidhana, complete surrender is also there.
Yeah.
So when someone comes and says, I did not come into yoga to be subservient,
Yeah.
or I did not come here to be quiet, I'm going to, when stuff like that comes out, then that understanding is, there is avidya there. There's some sort of avidya that's happening there.
And I want to be clear here from our perspective, from my perspective, it is 100% okay for you to have your perspective.
Absolutely.
It is 100% okay for you to have a story that you've attached to that perspective, and that's totally fine. And you can have, that can be part of your relationships with others. It can be part of the way that you interact with the community. It can be what drives your force for activism. And we want you to do that, and we want you to feel supported in that way.
That's your journey.
Yeah, that's your journey. But when you are teaching yoga, it is to teach people how to connect with Ishvara Pranidhana. It is to teach people, it is to teach you how to be in union with the source that is living and breathing you. The source that is living and breathing you is living and breathing each and every one of us. And our karma impacts our dharma, and that puts us on this path. But the source that is living you, the breath that you're taking right now, is the same source, the same energy that is animating us right here as well. It's all the same, and that's how we're connected, and that's what yoga does for us. So,
get in touch with that Purusha.
Yeah, the Purusha.
That Purusha is what is flowing within all of us, and that is what yoga is. It sort of opens up that realization that, hey, there is this Purusha that is flowing through me. You don't have to know that it's Purusha. Yeah. You don't even have to know the term. Just something. There is something that is there that is bigger than just me. That is bigger than everything else.
Bigger than ego.
Bigger than ego.
It's bigger than ego. And that's what we come back to. And so I guess what the purpose of this was, to address the outcry we're hearing in the community for how do we have our own opinions and activate and serve our brothers and sisters in community? How do we march with them? How do we hold space for them? How do we listen to them and still be a yoga teacher? How can we be a yoga teacher without cultural appropriation? Well, the first step is only teach what you know, only teach what you practice. And one of my teachers says, if you don't do Nadi Shodhana every day, you don't give it to clients, you don't teach it. You only teach what you know. And as you grow as a teacher, that's going to grow too. And again, we don't take things out of context. I can't tell you that we're all divine beings in a human experience, but I hate this group of people, or I'm angry at this group of people, or something like that. We are all divine beings in a human experience, and I cannot explain why other people do what they do. I am not a psychotherapist. That's what psychotherapists do. They diagnose people with things, like that. We are yoga teachers, and we're just holding the space for people to come into connection and to feel the vibrational energy that is already within them. So when we are...
And that can kind of only happen if we are clean and empty ourselves. So one very beautiful example, or rather like a metaphor, is it what you call it, metaphor, is the flute that Krishna holds. If you see a picture of Krishna, he's always got a flute. There's usually, with every deity in Sanatana Dharma, there is always something that's related to them, like either a flute or a veena or the mridangam or the tambura or something, either a musical instrument or the flower or the beads or something will be related to them. So when you look at the flute, it's like Krishna's flute or any flute, it's empty. And it's only when that's empty that when you blow in it, there will be beautiful music that will come out. So if we are empty and empty ourselves like the flute, then when whatever we teach or whatever we are in satsang or whatever we are giving to our students or whoever comes in contact with us, then the divine energy whatever lesson that needs to be delivered will flow through us. So we are not so much, I know, I'm going to give you what I know, because even that I know is ego, right? That is, that I itself is that ego-ness that we're all holding on to, that identity, right? So that itself is the, I know itself, goes into the kleshas, because so if we empty ourselves and then just allow it to flow, then that is void of that ego. That is void, then that becomes right knowledge, right? Then you can't question it. I mean, it's not me, because it's not me. There's no me there. I'm just a vessel. I'm just taking from there and giving to you, taking from there, giving to you. If my cup is full, there's no way I'm going to be able to take from anywhere and give to anybody. All that's going to happen is going to spill. Right? So us as yoga teachers, or responsible yoga teachers, our practice is to come back to ourselves and empty ourselves as much as we can. Now that being said, like what Michelle said in the beginning, that different hats that we have, this is our hat as a yoga teacher. So if we go into class and start talking about all these other stuff that's going on, or other parts of the different hats, then you might trigger or project onto your students who are, for whatever reason, they're coming in there for. I mean, they might come in there to forget everything else that's going on. For whatever reason, they might come in truly seeking to know themselves. For whatever reason, they might just come there to sleep in Shavasana.
But it doesn't even matter.
It doesn't matter.
Because it's not their practice is not our concern in that way. We are holding the container for them to come to practice.
So it's very important.
So it's very important.
No, that is yoga.
Yeah.
So that is yoga there. So when we try to, which reminds me of this decolonization.
Oh yes, we wanted. There was another topic we wanted to talk about. There was an article that talked about needing to decolonize yoga. So how did you feel about that, Shiva?
I didn't understand it at all. What is this decolonization? It took me a while to try to get into the mind of that person who was writing it before I could understand how this was relevant to yoga. What is colonizing and decolonizing? I didn't understand. So, because yoga is yoga. Yoga is yoga.
It doesn't matter who's teaching it. It doesn't matter what ethnicity there is. It does not matter. Yoga is yoga. It is union.
If of course, get the whole thing, understand the whole truth, experience it. If we experience it ourselves, then there is no cultural appropriation there. However, if you take one element of it and then you powder your own thing, or do the asanas. One of my guru's guru has mentioned this before, that sometimes we see certain therapists or yoga therapists out there, or people who are practicing yoga, and then the therapy thing, something, a little bit of Ayurveda here, a little bit of yoga therapy, and then they pull all these together and then they try to cure the symptoms. Oh, I'm going to cure a headache, I'm going to cure this, cure that. Then he calls it like yogopathy, because that's just like tying a dhoti. Dhoti is like a traditional Indian attire that the men wear. Tying a dhoti and then doing exactly what you're doing before.
Yeah.
So that is appropriation, because you don't really know, you're making a mishmash out of the whole thing.
Yeah.
But if you truly, you learn, you go straight to the roots, and you learn from someone with experience, from an experienced teacher, acharya, and then you stay in practice, not just stop at the 200 hours or this 10 videos I have to finish. That's it. I got my certificate. I'm gone. Yeah. Not so much like that. So because yoga is not just something that is separate. It's a way of life. At least
it's a way.
That's what I know. That's what I have known. So It's a way of life. It's my way of life. So it's you can't, I don't know, it's so this whole like colonization, you say that, oh, I've Americanized.
I think, and what comes up for me around this particular comment, this was in a blog post that we saw, and we were trying to bring in some outside, you know, examples of what's being put around on social media and the internet so that we would, you know, give a holistic viewpoint of, you know, this topic. But what came up for me around it is I think that there is a body of consensus out there that thinks that because yoga in America is traditionally in a studio where you pay money and the teacher is traditionally white, and you know there's not, you know, the traditional, you know, Indian things all the time in a yoga studio, that is colonization of yoga. Does that make sense? Is that, am I on the same page here? And what Shiva and I are saying is, if you're in yoga, it doesn't matter if, you know, dancing Shiva's in the corner, or if, you know, I mean, it doesn't matter what, it doesn't matter. There can be a cross on the wall. It doesn't matter. It's all cosmic consciousness. It's all the same thing. It's union. It's coming together. If it's a real, authentic practice in your life, then you're in yoga. And I think that's what we were trying to say, because
it's not something that you do.
It's a state of being. It's a state of being.
You are in yoga.
You are in yoga. And honestly, I believe, this is my belief, and some of you guys know my feelings, that we're all divine beings in a human experience, and that we're all enlightened. We just don't realize it. You know, that the yogis, they realize that's the goal, is self-realization, because they are already enlightened, but you have to realize that through the practice. And so that's what we're doing. We're in this state of yoga already. We're already in yoga because we're in relationships. We're in relationship with ourselves. We're learning how to love ourselves. We're learning how to connect to ourselves. That's the practice. Samadhi hits, and you are an enlightened being having a human experience. And then it's a process of remembering, because we keep forgetting. We keep seeing the kleshas over and over again, and we forget. And so the practice of yoga is like, you're breathing right now, you're in yoga. Like, you are breathing right now, you are in yoga. That's what it means. When we start to talk about it as just a physical practice, that's appropriation. When we start to talk about it as, you know, only, I don't know what, only the yamas. Only the yamas. That's appropriation. When we start to talk about, oh no, yoga is only samadhi. Well, that's sort of appropriation too, because Patanjali gives us these 8 limbs. And the 8 limbs are the whole path that brings you to self-realization, and that's yoga. You know, I have in the past, we've taught this training to many, many people of many different backgrounds and ethnicities, and from all over the world. And very rarely do I have anybody come back to me and say, oh, this is against my religion, or this is against my whatever, because once they see what yoga really is, it is just living and breathing in this union, and that it's awakening to this.
Yes. And there are many traditions that have come, because so many gurus have been there. And I'm not talking about like Krishnamacharya or Deshikacharya, but like even like my guru or his guru, or, you know, there are so many lineages that have come from there, and each one, the parampara is different. So there are certain practices that are specific to certain paramparas, and that's fine. It doesn't mean that if you're doing one parampara, like, oh, I'm an Ashtanga, you are doing something else, you are not doing yoga, I am doing yoga. That is not what it is.
Because Hatha yoga, Laya yoga.
So many. And I could not even be doing a single asana and could
yoga.
Be in yoga. See, that's the thing, because Patanjali talks about asana, what? Twice. In the whole
2 times
sutras, he mentions asana. And he doesn't say asana means 64,000 different types of poses. No.
Sthira, Sukha, Asanam.
Sthiram, Sukham, Asanam. And then in the first one, he talks about the 8, which is the Yama, Niyama, Asana. That's where the word asana comes again. So there again, it's just pose. And that doesn't necessarily mean contorting myself into a pretzel, but more the the pose means that seat, that space that you are holding, that container.
Yes.
That is that asana.
Yes.
So Patanjali again never talks about these fancy, moves that have come up. Now, are those, so therefore should I totally throw it away? No, because that is necessary to prepare our body and mind for what is to for that involution.
Yeah.
After the involution also has to happen. You have to go back to yourself.
Yeah.
So that bija is already there within all of us. That bija, which is that first seed, which has the full potential, what you can be, what you are, that full potential, that bijam is already there within all of us. How you realize your potential is your
journey,
which is your dharma.
That's what your dharma.
The dharma, and then you have your karma along the way.
And this is a good point to just talk for those of you who are studio owners or that you want to teach in a studio or things like that. It brings me back to this other thing, like, I think again, yoga in the West, in America in particular, has gotten this, sort of undercurrent reputation that it is colonizing traditional yoga. But if we're coming clean and we're holding that space and we're letting our students on the mat have their relationship with their practice and go through those steps, we are being authentic to yoga. That is, I mean, yes. How many times has your guru taught you and not said a word?
Oh, most of the time.
Not a word, not a single word.
No contact.
Because it's a lot of it's transference, transmitted. Even when I was with my teacher, sometimes we didn't even have to talk about it, right?
Just them, just the thought, you are in connection, then that is enough. When there are so many times where I have thought of Michelle, and then she calls me.
Yeah. Because we have that psychic connection.
How did you call me? I was just thinking of you. And that might have happened to so many of us. Yeah. You just think of someone and then, they call you 2 minutes later, or I just thought of you yesterday and you're calling me today. We haven't spoken for 2 months.
Yeah.
Something like that. And then we put it down to coincidence. But there's so much more that's happening, right, around us psychically. So much there's different layers.
Remember that we are, and if we look at the 4 energetic bodies that we talk about in our training, right? We're physical, we're intellectual, we're emotional, we're spiritual. 3/4 are metaphysical, guys. 3/4 are metaphysical. 1/4 is physical. So then when we come back to our yoga practice and we make it all about the physical, and we forget that part of what Patanjali is saying is that we need to be able to recognize what we're attracted to, what we're averted to, and we need to be able to see our perception and verbalization for what they are in order to break those karmic bonds. That is part of the tapas that is in the niyamas, and how we burn through that karmic samskara that keeps bringing us back through births and deaths, right? So we wanted to have a conversation and really bring it back to the sutras and back to, when I get activated online. Okay, so I'm going to give you an idea of some of the things that's going on right now. I'm not very vocal about the way I'm supporting community right now, because I have a business and I have a responsibility to hold space for every single person that is in our training. So my opinion does not matter publicly right now. I can't really say a lot of anything. I can just hold space for you guys. But on the flip side, I do my work, right? And I donate to the causes. We currently have a scholarship program going on that meets the needs of some of the people that we need to meet the needs of. We're doing the work behind the scenes. And when I get activated by something, I ask myself, why? Why do I have an attachment or an aversion to that? And that's my karmic material. That's the stuff I have to sit with and figure out why, so that I can hold space for all sides, so that I can hold space for the ignorance and the light. Avidya, ignorance, vidya, light, knowledge, right? We have to hold space for both of it, because we are not devoid of the avidya ourselves. We don't know everything. And the second we go around telling people that we know everything is the second we've fallen back into avidya. Yeah?
Of course, because actually, when you spoke about holding space, because we have the avidya in ourselves, you have to look at Paramacharya. You have Shankaracharya and Mahaperiyava and Ramana Bhagavan. They were vidya embodied, complete realized beings. So it must have been so painful for them to be on earth and surrounded by people who just didn't get it. You know, and in fact, there have been times where Mahaperiyava, he was the Madhadipati of in Kanchipuram, one of the 4 centers that Adi Shankaracharya set up. He mentioned every day, he was, you know, after at the end of the day, people come and see him, they ask questions. And then at the end of the day, he was telling the child who was sitting beside him, he said, you know, do you know my full name? And then she said, I don't know. And then he told his full name, or Shri Chandrasekhara Saraswati, Mahaswamigal, etc., etc. And then he goes, do you know, I have this, so it's a big designation. Okay, so technically it's a big designation. And then he goes, do you know, not a single, so like I can give Atma Vidya to anybody who asks for it. About 200 people have come and seen me. Not a single one has asked me to how to know myself. Can you give me the knowledge of the divine? Can you teach me yoga? Not a single person has asked me. All they want is, when will I get married? When will I have children? When will I get my next job? When will everybody is so, but he was so compassionate till the end of his life. So compassionate, full of compassion for Ramana Bhagavan. Everybody who came and spoke to him, he would give in silence. There are so many yogis out there who in Arunachala, you see the Arunachala Giri. There are so many beings, and in physical form and not physical form, just sitting there meditating. What are they meditating for? They've already achieved everything that needs to be achieved. They're still here. Why? They are sitting and meditating, transmitting their energy and love and compassion to everybody else.
Yes.
So holding, it doesn't mean that, I mean, just going that, oh, because there is avidya in me, I have to hold for you. No, that holding, that compassion, it is our true nature.
Yeah.
And that's it. Whether that avidya is there within you and you recognize it, that's your own material, that's your own work. Mm-hmm. Us being compassionate towards everybody and anybody, that is our true nature, and we realize that. Now, then comes the whole, oh, does that mean I should not condone, no, oppose something that is not good?
Yeah.
All that that comes in, because, and then we attach ourselves so much to it. We have in the Mahabharata, that reminded me, in Mahabharata, there's one character, his Vidura, and he is the king. You know, I don't know how many of you know about the Mahabharata, but there were 2 sides, all brothers. So one side is 100 brothers, one side is 5 brothers, they're cousins. So their dads were brothers. And so their dads, so there was a 3rd brother there. So the uncle of all these 106 dudes. And that uncle, just before the war started, he was like Dharma personified. So he was fully, and he was realized as well, and he knew that this war is not necessary and everything, and he was trying to tell everybody, please don't fight, don't fight, meaning he was trying to advise the people who are doing the injustice. He said, don't, be like that. Mm-hmm. Why don't you just, give them what they're asking? All they were asking for is 5 villages, so that they can also, have a place to rule. And finally, when it realized that everything is, gone, he didn't come and fight. He went away. He literally distanced himself from the whole thing. And he was a warrior. He was of warrior caste as well, right? So he didn't do that. He chose to just go away, because he had gone beyond his caste. He had gone beyond everything already. He had reached that level. And he went away and he didn't fight. And after 36 years, after all the war, everything finished, then he came back. Mm-hmm. And he came back, why? To collect his brothers, said, okay, enough of this, all the wars, everything's over. You're still here and enroached in this whole, like samskara, So come. So he came to collect his brother to take him, like he was his guru kind of thing. It's like, enough, let me bring you away. So there are people in every single like role, you know. So you want to talk about the Mahabharata, that you have a character who walked away from everything. So there are so many.
We have to remember that our dharma and our karma is ours, and that's not for somebody else. And we have to respect everybody. I mean, this is the yoga, right? That I see that we are all divine beings in this web of interdependence. And I respect and love you, you know, even in the avidya, even in the ego. It doesn't matter. I can see beyond that. I can see that you're a divine being in a human experience. And that I may have some material around to the way people are treated or the way we treat other people, and I can exercise that however I want in my personal life. And again, we encourage you to do that. We support you in any way we can. But when we come into the yoga room and we come into the seat of the teacher, we're holding that bigger container. It's not about us. That's the big thing. That's the big thing. It's not about my perception of reality. It's not about my perception of what these students should or should not think. It's about holding space for them to do their work, right?
Yes, because everybody has their own journey. Everybody has their own perceptions. No matter what, see, whatever I am experiencing, how much ever I explain it to you, you will not be able to you know, experience that same thing.
And that's the thing about this right now. Those of us who have not experienced the hardships and the loss and the grief that our friends or our, you know, colleagues, our, you know, family members, etc., are experiencing right now, like, we need to have that compassion for them and understand that there's no way that I can understand your walk. You know, I will never understand my husband, what it's like to be a man. I will never understand, you know, your life and what it is like to be away from your culture and here in this culture. And likewise, nobody will understand what it was like to live my life. But what we can offer each other as gifts along that path is love and compassion. And, you know, we also, just going back to the sutras once again, Patanjali says we're in these samskaras, right? The more we do it, the deeper they get, guys, the deeper they get. So when we're in these situations, we have to ask ourselves, what haven't we done yet? What haven't we done? If we've been, you know, out there doing, you know, reacting this way or reacting that way, and it just keeps happening over and over and over again, that's an indication that maybe there's another way, and maybe there's a way to break this samskara if I change the way I'm responding to it. Because karmically, we're designed to just keep on that little wheel and just keep going and going and going. And this awakening into our enlightened state of being is what propels us out of that karmic wheel, that what gets us to moksha. It's what gets us to liberation. And I believe that you can be liberated right now. I mean, Patanjali says in Kavalapada at the very end, he says, some people are liberated in this lifetime and some people aren't, but we're all liberated. Right? That's what he says.
Some people remember.
Some people remember, and some people don't, and that's okay. It doesn't matter. Pure awareness loves and holds regardless. Yes. Yeah? So let's open it up for some questions. We've got about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and we'd love to hear some questions. Again, you know, let's all just, you know, feel free to unmute yourself and ask.
You muted them? Can they unmute?
Yeah, they can unmute themselves. Questions, comments, thoughts?
Hi. I had a question similar to the last one mentioned in the chat about people who only want someone. Hi.
Oh wait, hold on. I may have you muted. Can you guys hear me? Yes. Yeah. Okay, Krista, you ready?
Yeah, I had a similar question to the last one mentioned in the chat about people who only want to learn asana. Lots of students I have that only seem interested in that. So how do you keep that
Well, I'll share my perspective and then we'll let Shiva share hers. So the question is, what do you do with students who only want to learn asana? And so my perspective is, if asana brings them on their mat, that's okay. It's their journey. Again, Shiva talks about that seed. We all have that seed. So if that's the way they come to yoga, okay, you know, I try not to proselytize or push my belief system on other people when I am teaching a class. Now, you guys are in training, so you're going to hear more of how I think and feel and my opinions. You're going to get a little bit more projection than my students do in the classroom. But when I'm in the classroom, I really do try to hold that container in a different way. So I have had students, I've even had people in training that are like, I don't get the spiritual stuff, da, 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 da. And it activates me. Remember that time I called you and I was like, she doesn't get it. But it's not for me to make her get. That's not my job. My job is to hold the space, to give her an authentic experience, and she'll take what she'll take and she'll leave the rest, right? Yes. What do you think?
Yes, absolutely. Asana, again, like a lot of times people are drawn to, we think that we are the ones going to class, or I have chosen yoga as my path. That's really not true. What happened is yoga has, you know, decided to like choose you, or the divine energy, or that, because there is a bigger cosmic plan that we are all, you know, just puppets in. So there's a bigger cosmic plan, and so that divinity, or whatever you want to call it, that energy has pushed you into this path. So many a times people have been pushed into this path, maybe to do asana, maybe there is some underlying health thing that they need to, you know, work through, because asanas, the certain postures or whatever that you get yourself into, it aligns your energy in a particular way. And that can help to prevent maybe
and change your perception.
Your perception will be slowly molded. And even health wise, you know, certain kriyas that you do, that in class you might just be holding plank for some time, your core or your abdomen gets stronger, and that will in turn go into the jataragni, which is right there. And when it goes into the jataragni, it might be a preventive mechanism for maybe some other digestive issues that could possibly have. So there is some guidance there in every single one of us, whether we realize it or not. So there is a guidance. Some of us call it God. Some of us, you know, who can see it, we call it God, or whatever you want to call it. Those who don't, you know, they say, oh, nothing, I'm the one doing everything. But actually there is that guidance is still there.
Yeah.
So coming in, to answer your question, coming into class for just asana is perfectly fine. There are so many in here. In fact, there is power vinyasa. There are so many different types of whatever. And so each person at that point, they need something. So in our classes, if you want to give a little bit more, throw in a little bit more authenticity rather than, you know, doing exercise with a dhoti on. When you are teaching, we be compassionate and completely empty first thing, the container. And second thing, if you start off your class with just a namaste, what does that namaste mean? Know it for yourself. Experience that namaste. That what does that mean? You know, a lot of times we all just say namaste, namaste, hello, hello. It's like an equal to a hello. But it's much more deeper than that. Why do we have these two hands in this mudra? It's an Anjali mudra. Why is it, you know, seated here? I can do it here. I can do it here, up here. It means different things. So that's where the, you know, seeking that knowledge. Okay, what am I doing? Or you just say namaste here. Okay, I'm holding you in my heart. That nama, I am bowing down to you. I'm, you know, the highest in me. I've heard this a lot. The light in me bows down to the light in you. Don't just say it because you heard it so much and that, you know, you...
And what does that say? That means that we are subservient to the light in others, that it is our service. It's not my agenda, it's my service that I'm giving, you know? So I get you. I mean, Krista, I got to tell you, if we're going to be perfectly real and honest, this particular thing sort of bothers me too sometimes. But I have to remember that I'm not teaching class for me. I'm teaching class for the students. And whatever the students need, I'm going to provide that for them. What I do from a practical standpoint, Krista, is I look at it from the Panchamaya Kosha system. And I say, okay, they've come here through Annamaya Kosha. So let me get them into Pranamaya Kosha. So maybe they to connect with their breath. And I start reminding them, drop out of the thinking mind and let your conscious awareness drop into your breath. Anytime you're in class and you're thinking, start counting your breath, start being with your breath. And see, now I'm creating a relationship. Annamaya, Pranamaya, we're adding a layer. So now a month has gone by and they're in it and they're like, hey, I feel great. This is amazing. Oh my God, I love it. Now they're coming every day and I'm like, all right. I got into Annamaya. Now I'm going to get into Pranamaya and then I go into Manamaya. And then I start teaching about the 5 mental fluctuations in class. And I start talking about, so Patanjali, you know, the backbone of yoga is Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. He says to me, 5 mental fluctuations. Isn't that radical, guys? There's only 5 things up there. Now I don't have to stress so much about all these thoughts in my head. And I start teaching that stuff, right? And then they're like, oh my gosh, this is like knocking my socks off because now my relationships have changed. Now my husband and I don't fight as much. Now my teenagers and I have communicate. And I'm like, yeah, that's right. And then next thing you know, we're in Vijnana Maya and they're getting into Shavasana and they're making that connection. So from a practical teaching standpoint, Krista, that's how I do it. But I agree. I mean, I think that if whatever way they come, we take them.
The beauty in all of like all the different types of yogas that I know, I don't know about power and all that, but like Ashtanga, Vinyasa or Hatha, anything like that. The beauty is that the design of your class, it starts with some light breathing. There is breath work all the way through the asana, at least in this training, the way we go, it's shared and integrated with everybody. At the end, you have Shavasana. So you are going through pretty much everything. And whether they know it or not, they might think that it's asana only. Whether you know it or not, you are giving the whole package. So you can rest knowing that
you're doing your job.
True. You know, you're being authentic to what yoga is. You don't have to necessarily go and, you know, lecture or
do puja or something like that.
Anything like that. Don't have to do anything. Just for our own knowledge and for our own satisfaction. Just know these small gestures, what they mean. And then slowly that seed that has already been planted, slowly it will grow. You may not necessarily even see it. They may not necessarily see it. They may not realize it. It may not even happen in this lifetime, but that doesn't matter. There is some facilitation that is happening through you. Knowing that it's not you that's teaching anything, that whatever is being taught through you. Your body and your voice and your words is just a vessel through which yoga is being like transferred. Is that okay, Krista?
Amazing. Thank you so much.
Beautiful. Thank you, Krista. Any other comments, questions? How did you guys feel about this lecture? I mean, was it helpful to you guys? Yeah?
Yes, this is Mary Ellen. Hi, definitely. This is my first time coming on to the Zoom with you guys. I just signed up the other day and I can't tell you how much I appreciate this and how much I love it so far.
Good. We're so happy. I mean, we are really trying. We've never had to do this online and in person like this, so it is a challenge, but we really appreciate everybody's patience. And we want to talk about these hard things. We really do. We want to have a dialogue because it doesn't do anybody any good to just not talk about it, right? So it's a good idea to have these conversations and be together in this way. Any other comments or questions? Any other questions about teaching or about, yes, Mary Ann?
Hi, it's my first time too, and I just want to say thank you. I'm honored first to meet you, and it's my first time joining the meeting. And thank you for sharing great insights about a very relevant issue. And I hope to join the next weeks to come.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much. Yes. Yes. Oh, I'm so glad. Any
With
other
this whole-
questions, thoughts?
I had one more
Yeah.
thing.
Oh, Shiva, yeah.
Now, with this whole like cultural appropriation thing, please know that not every Indian is following a yoga way of life.
Yeah.
That is, even though, I mean, yoga, yes, originated from India, Patanjali, all munis are there, yes. There are many Indians, there are, I mean, 1.3 billion Indians on the Indian continent and subcontinent. And there are so many millions of them walking around, not even knowing who Patanjali is, not knowing anything about yoga, not following anything related to yoga. There is everything that's happening here is happening there too, and has been happening for a long time. There's so much fighting, the racism.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I myself have been subject to that. So in India, and I'm talking about in India.
Yeah.
So it's not that, I'm of a different culture. I was born in America. I'm from America, and therefore it's, that is Indian. All Indians are going to think that I'm whatever doing, like taking their culture. A lot of Indians themselves are not following the Indian culture. So let's not, that's not.
It goes back to the perception and our story around it. If we perceive that all Indians are yogis, right, then that's a generalized, just like if we perceive that all, people believe one thing that, are part of an organization, or all people believe another thing, unfortunately, that's just not the case. And, this is it's a good opportunity when we have these hardships in our life, and we're dealing with these things in our present moment. It's a good opportunity to go back to, do I really know, right? Do I really know? Is my perception based in truth, or is it based in my experience? And not that our experience isn't valid, but if it's based in our experience, that's our material. The truth has no material attached to it. Does that make sense? We are all divine beings in a human experience. That spider that is living under my sofa, because I let them live under my sofa, guys. I have a whole nest of spiders in here. How do you feel now? No, I don't kill bugs. So I've got all these little house spiders, and those spiders are divine beings in a spider experience. And, they have karma too. And, we're all just doing the very best we can. And avidya is what prevents us from doing any better. Avidya is what prevents us from doing better. So when we check in with ourselves and ask, are we in avidya or are we in right knowledge? Avidya, right knowledge. Oh, I'm in avidya. Let me do my work. Oh, I'm in right knowledge. Okay, I'm going to stand by Arjuna. I'm going to stand by Arjuna, and I'm going to be there, Oh, the topic for today was cultural appropriation and how to handle it as a yoga teacher. So that was, how do we be authentic yoga teachers without inadvertently culturally appropriating our lineage, right? Krista, did you have another comment?
No, sorry, I just put that up accidentally.
Accidentally.
Okay, no more.
No worries.
Any other questions, comments, thoughts? Awesome. Well, we really appreciate each and every one of you guys. We're going to add this conversation to the office hours sheet. I'll make sure that Jessica gets that updated for all of those who missed it today. And I just want to remind everybody that we have an open door policy. You can always reach out directly to me. We are experiencing high call volumes, so please be patient with us as we
like a call center.
as we continue to try to take care of all the anything that's going on. And also for those of you who are getting ready to finish up, I don't know where Nina went. She was in my radar earlier, but if you are interested in giving back, if you're interested in mentoring once you graduate, please reach out to us, because we are looking at ways that the mentors can be more in relationship with you guys and can have more like time with you guys and track you through the program, so you'd have one mentor. How does that sound for you guys? Yes, you like it? Okay, so that's what we're working on. So right now, like I said, we're experiencing high call volume. Give us a couple days and we will have everything sorted out for you. Thank you so much for being a part of this. Oh, the lecture topics. Oh, this is another thing you guys are going to be so excited about. We created an entire schedule from now till the end of September, and we are posting that. I know Christy's like, yay! So we're going to post that for you guys probably today or tomorrow. This weekend, we're doing anatomy for injury prevention. So I'm going to lead one day, and I'm going to talk, the day I lead, I'm going to teach you how to use props in practice to prevent injuries, okay? And then Christine Anderson will lead the next day, and she's going to talk to you about corporate injuries, like text neck and sitting at desk, and how do we intervene in those situations. So that's what we're talking about this weekend, okay? All righty, guys. Well, if you have any questions, you can stay on the call. Otherwise, we'll say goodbye for now. Thank you so much. We really appreciate you all. Sending lots of love. Thank you so much, guys.
I had one super quick question.
Sure, Melissa.
You had mentioned that Shiva might be doing like some Sanskrit.
So I have asked Shiva to do a few videos for us so that we can create a little Sanskrit introduction to Sanskrit. And then the director of yoga therapy training, Anna Pilar, has also said that she would do a few videos. So we're going to create that over the next couple of weeks, and then we will add that as a free course for you guys. You can take it for free on us, okay?
Even if we're done the training, which I'm hoping to be this week?
Yes, yes, yes. It'll just be a bonus. It'll be like a little mini course, and we might give you guys a promo code so you can download it for free.
So would that maybe be presented on the Facebook page or through email? How would we know to look for it?
Sure. So it will be presented on Facebook when we do it, but I would just keep checking in with the courses because it will end up showing up there. And then if you see it and there's like a price on it, just email me directly and be like, hey, I saw you published the course on Sanskrit. Can you give me the discount code for existing students? And we'll do that.
That would be great. And if I have a little, I'm in the 500-hour program, so, and I love language, so I know a little bit about the pieces of the language that come together. If we found, if students found that they were more interested in learning more, is that something that we could just talk about and maybe have like a more advanced course? Or?
Well, you know, I think if you're at a level where you're wanting to explore those more advanced techniques, then that's something that you can, you know, talk about working privately with Shiva on, you know, just like you would do a private asana, you could always do a private, you know, language. The thing we want to do first is prepare people so that they've got a basic foundation, because you can't come to Shiva until you've got that basic foundation. But if you already have the foundation, then you can, you know, work with her independently. Shiva's my best friend. She doesn't work for us. Everything she gives to us is unconditional, but she does teach. She teaches, and so that's a separate sort of organization. So you guys would work that out on your own, but she's a resource.
I think I better take the course first just to be on the safe side.
Sure, sure. Sounds good, darling.
I also don't know everything.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there could be people out here, even on this screen, who know more than me. And that is beautiful and wonderful. So I could definitely at least point you in the direction of the proper resource that I could give some recommendations, and you could go ahead, from there. That
Awesome. Thank you
is
very much. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks, Melissa. All right, guys. Well, if there aren't any more questions, we'll wrap up the call for today. Thanks again. And we just really appreciate each and every one of you guys. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Hari Om.
Bye-bye.
Namaskar.